Welcome to the Lawrence High School Speech and Debate family. You have volunteered to help us by serving as a community judge for our forensics tournament. Thank you for volunteering. Without your help, this activity could not exist. When our students travel to other communities to compete, those communities provide judges to evaluate and provide feedback to our students. And these opportunities help us improve our skills, and they are invaluable in learning how to effectively communicate with others. Debate and Forensics functions as a quid pro quo. We host a tournament offering this opportunity for other schools to compete, and in return, they invite us to their tournaments. So even though you won't get to see any Lawrence High students competing, your work does provide that opportunity for our kids. Again, we could not do this without you, so thank you. Debate and forensics are sort of odd activities. Imagine a world where an athletic coach could only work with the team during practices, could not be on the field during the game, and could only learn about the game from what the players say later and from the written comments of the referees. You would think that's crazy, but that's exactly what happens in forensics. So I want you to take that term judge with a big grain of salt. While we will ask you to rank the performers in order or to decide which side wins a debate, that is perhaps the least important part of your task. More important for these students is the feedback you give to help them improve. Our tournament takes place the third or fourth weekend of a 13-week season. Most of these students you see will be at their first or second tournament of the year, and for many younger performers, this will be their first tournament ever. You will see some fabulous performances and some that need a lot of polish to be considered good. So instead of thinking of yourself as a judge, I want you to think of yourself as an educator. The feedback you write on the ballot is the only thing the coaches have to help their students get better. You are the eyes and ears of the coach in that room. So please be sure to give good feedback on the student ballots. They will get those ballots back at the end of the tournament, and your comments will form the basis of what they work on next week in class to improve. My rule of thumb when I judge is to offer 3 suggestions for improvement and to mention at least 3 things that worked well in the speech. You may see a performance where you could offer 100 suggestions. Please don't. If you do, the performer may be overwhelmed and may be so discouraged that it's hard to get motivated to improve. Instead, pick the 3 suggestions that you think will generate the most improvement in the performance. That is a much more manageable number, and the kids don't get overwhelmed. You may also see a performance where the only 3 things you can find to suggest seem really nitpicky. Fine, write those on the ballot. But if a student gets no suggestions, they have no idea how to get better. And by the end of the season, those nitpicky concerns will make the difference between winning a medal or going home early and disappointed. So let's walk through the process from beginning to end. When you arrive at Lawrence High, enter through the main doors by the statue of Chesty and make your way to the Learning Commons. There should be a large sign in the Commons area that directs you to the right spot. That's where we will hand out ballots. That's also where you will return to pick up ballots for subsequent rounds. We will have a hospitality room just across the hall from the Learning Commons where you can grab a drink or a snack if you want one. We will be offering some kind of dinner on Friday night and breakfast and lunch on Saturday. Please feel free to help yourself to those options. The ballots we hand out to you are the master ballots. They are what we will use to tally results. The master ballot should have your name on it, the room number where you will be judging, a brief description of the event you're judging, and the names of all performers in your section. In most events, the performers are not required to perform in the order listed on the ballot. Speaking order really only matters in the extemporaneous speaking and improvised acting events. The students know that, and they will follow the order. In other events, students may perform in whatever order makes sense for them. Please be conscious of the start and end times of each round. If the round is over, do not let another speaker begin. It will hold the entire tournament up. But if a speaker begins performing before the round is scheduled to end, do not stop them in the middle. They may finish their performance without penalty. If a student misses a performance, their coach will need to work with me to reschedule so that the tournament can remain on time. Once you've seen all of your listed performers, we ask that you rank them on the master ballot. No 2 entries may receive the same ranking. For example, there cannot be 2 performances in second place. There must be a first place, second place, third place, fourth, etc. And don't stress too much about these ratings. Each student will perform their piece in front of at least 3 different judges over the course of the tournament. One ranking doesn't determine success or failure. We combine all those rankings together to determine who earns their medals and recognition at the end of the tournament. So now, let's talk about the different events you might be watching. There are 3 different types of debate events. On Friday, we will be hosting Lincoln Douglas debate, congressional debate, and public forum debate. Lincoln Douglas, known as LD for short, is a 1 versus 1 debate over a values-based resolution. Congressional debate is an event where students engage in a model Congress, debating legislation that they themselves have written and submitted. Public forum debate is a 2 versus 2 format and focuses on current issues and events. The topics being debated will be printed either on your ballot or, in the case of Congress, you receive copies of the submitted legislation. The master debate ballots will look like this. Notice the format of this ballot. Your name and the room number where you will be judging can be found at the top, as can the resolution being debated. On these ballots, we ask you to not only rate the speakers, but also to write down which side won the debate. The directions are printed on the ballot, but should you have any questions, simply step into the hallway and ask one of the Lawrence students there for assistance. If they can't answer your question, they can direct you to someone who can. Please remember to offer both positive and constructive feedback for both sides. It is the only way they can improve. Also, we ask that you give a clear reason why you voted the way you did so that students and coaches can understand your decision. You may use the back of the ballot to add more comments if you need to. Next, let's talk about the speaking and acting events. The speech events include domestic extemporaneous and foreign extemporaneous speaking, original oratory, informative speaking, and impromptu speaking. Each of these events has important differences, and those are described on the master ballot that you pick up in the Learning Commons. The acting events include humorous interpretation, dramatic interpretation, duo interpretation, prose interpretation, poetry interpretation, and program of oral interpretation. Again, these events each have unique and important characteristics, and they are described on the master ballot. In the speaking and acting events, you will see anywhere from 5 to 8 performances during the round. For most of the events, there's no particular order of performance. However, if you get a performer in your room who is not listed on your master ballot, please check with a hall chair before proceeding to make sure that the student is in the correct room. During the performance, judges may take notes as they occur or wait until after the performance is over to make notes. Either is acceptable. Please do not make comments or notes on the master ballot, though. Those do not go back to the coach or students. Instead, each performer will hand you a student ballot where you should include all comments you want the coach and students to see. You can write on both front and back of the student ballots if you choose. Most student ballots will be on colored paper and are clearly distinguished from the master ballot. These student ballots will go back to the coach and students at the end of the tournament to help them improve for future performances. Once the round is over, please indicate the rankings of the students on both the master ballot and on the student ballots. These need to match, so it's a good way to double check yourself and make sure that you have them ranked the way you want them before leaving the room. No matter the event, there are a few things you should be looking at in evaluating the students. All of these are important, but none of them should be substantially more important than the others. It is important to pay attention to the fluidity of a presentation. How smoothly does the speaker speak? How does the speaker handle themselves after making a mistake? Can they recover smoothly? Along with observing the style, judges should also make note of the quality of the content of the presentation. Speeches should have appropriate types and amounts of supporting evidence. Acting performances should be of pieces that are high quality and with a depth of writing. Along with the style and content, please also note the level of understanding the student appears to have of the material they are presenting. In debate and speech, this is intuitive, but even in acting, it's appropriate to consider how well an actor appears to understand and or empathize with the characters being portrayed. All of these are great material for comments on ballots, and we encourage you to do so. There are also a few things we ask you to avoid. First is your personal opinion or bias. Some of the debates or performances may involve topics that touch on fundamental beliefs or provoke uncomfortable emotions. As much as possible, we ask you to set aside your own personal perspectives and make an effort to be as objective as you can. We are all human, and we know there's a level of subjectivity in this activity. But the more fair we can be, the more educational this activity becomes. Next, we ask you to avoid being overly critical or overly complimentary. Especially this early in the season, we don't want students to become too discouraged or too confident. Remember, my earlier suggestion of 3 constructive and 3 positive comments? Well, obviously this is just a guideline and each performance and situation is different. We just ask you to keep in mind that you are functionally a teacher while you are judging. Make comments that will help us teach these students to be better. Finally, we ask that you not put any comments about a performer's appearance on the ballot. Our experience, as well as national research, shows that these sorts of comments are disproportionately directed at women and students of color. I cannot count the number of times I've ridden home with a crying student because the outfit she's wearing is all she could afford, or one she believed was professional, only to be harshly criticized by a faceless stranger, and feeling like her words were ignored because of what she was wearing. If you feel there's something that needs to be addressed, please find one of my students and they will help you find me. If we need to, we can have you talk directly with that performer's coach. After the round is over, we ask that you double check all of the ballots to make sure you have the scores correct, as you intended them to be. Then please step into the hallway and hand your ballots to one of our student workers. They should check your ballots to confirm that your scores are consistent. Please do not walk away until they have had a chance to do so we can have you make corrections if necessary. After that, if you are scheduled for another round, please return to the Learning Commons to pick up your next ballot. You'll also find snacks and some refreshments across the hall in our hospitality room. We plan to have a Friday dinner and Saturday breakfast and lunch available for judges as well. And finally, I'd like to say thank you again for supporting our program and our students. Your work here will help students from all over the state to get better and to grow. And just maybe you'll even enjoy the process. So until then, I'll see you at the tournament.